get started. We'll start with introductions. My name is Maren Brennan, and I'm really excited to be here today with my friend Zach Davey. We're both admissions officers. You know what? I'll just talk about myself. Zach can talk about himself in a second. But I work in admissions. I'm going to present portfolio tips for transfers, and not only, I also happen to be the transfer specialist in our office, so I'm excited to be talking to you all about just the portfolio in terms of applying as a transfer. This will just be a kind of general overview, but I am excited, as I said, to be joined by my friend and colleague Zach Davey.
Hi everyone, my name's Zach. I'm also one of the admissions officers at RISD and also alum from the school. I graduated in 2020 from the painting department, and I'll be behind the scenes answering everyone's questions. So please feel free to type in as many questions as you would like into the Q&A chat box. Please use the Q&A chat rather than the regular chat that you've been typing in so far. It just helps us stay organized, make sure we get to everyone's questions. You might have to click on the three dots that say more in order to find the Q&A tab. But yeah, I'll be behind the scenes. Feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like, and I might save some for the end to ask Maren directly, and I'll pass it to you now.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen in a second, but first I wanted to turn off my video. And now, Zach, if you can just let me know
Yep.
that you can see.
Looks great.
Excellent. All right.
Oh, actually, the bottom looks a little cut off, but I don't know if that's a big deal.
Mm, Hold on a moment. Thank you for, wait a sec. I don't. Mm-mm-mm. Let's try it again. Let's see. And if it does, well, we're rolling. Oh, look at this.
Oh.
Look at that. Just
It
to look
looks the
up.
same, but I think it's okay.
Okay. I'm like, okay, hopefully not a big,
Oh, actually, no, it's better now. It's fine.
is it? Okay, good.
Cool.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. I told you guys we were friends. Sweet. All right. Okay. And here I go again, advancing to the second slide. I guess we're going to start with this one because why not? Um, we're talking about the transfer portfolio. Again, once again, so happy for you all to be here. Let's quickly talk about, um, it's a lot of the advice that we give is very similar advice for all of our undergraduate applicants. But I do want to say that the main difference between applying to RISD as a first year and as a transfer is that as a transfer applicant, you are applying to a particular department. Rather than experimental and foundation studies, which is our first year at RISD. So, the portfolio is 12 to 20 different examples of your best and most recent work. So when I say most recent, last couple of years. Again, you're applying to a particular major, so it should be specific to the major that you're applying to. You're still welcome to include other disciplines, and it's a good idea to have some foundational work. But yeah, it should be evident in your portfolio that you are applying to that major. We definitely, variety is great to see, not just for variety's sake, but a variety of what is your strongest work, what you're most excited about, that speaks to the department you're interested in. We want to see your personality in all of the work that you're sharing with us. We want to see risk taking, your original ideas and concepts. Show us your point of view in each piece that you're sharing with us. All right. So again, as I said, it's, good for us to see your foundational skills. Um, it's, most of our transfers start at RISD with a bit of just a taste of our foundation program. We have a summer EFS program, which is a 6-week condensed version of our first year at RISD. So, um, you know, I'll talk more about what goes into experimental and foundation studies, but I will say that you may be waived from summer EFS if you have 18 comparable college foundation credits. And I will also say that that is not the decision of the admissions office, but the decision of the dean of EFS. So, if you are required to take that summer EFS program, your enrollment at RISD depends on the performance and the successful completion of the summer program. So once you finish that, then you start in your major sophomore year in the fall. So essentially, like summer EFS is like a great transition into RISD. It's a great opportunity to meet and work alongside other RISD students who are going to be going into different departments in the fall. And this time is essentially like artist boot camp. So it definitely expands the way that you work. Um, you're experimenting with not only the kinds of work you're doing, but maybe even the tools that you're using to make that work. So this is drawing, where a student has made a drawing tool, like they've taped an eraser and um, charcoal to what I think is like a large um, paper roll. We also have design, and then we also have spatial dynamics, which is our fancy term for 3D. So again, it's you're not applying to EFS, but it is helpful to include pieces that reflect the EFS program in your portfolio, just to we'll see on your transcript if you've taken similar foundation classes, but it's always helpful to see visuals. So as I said, in the fall, you will start in your major. Um, once again, transfer applicants apply to one particular department. So I also want to say, please keep in mind that transfer admissions is based on space availability within each major. Now, because our first year students declare their major in the spring, so space availability is dependent on what's left over after they declare their major. And because that major declaration happens in the spring, which is around the time of our transfer application deadline, which is March 17th, we don't really have advance notice as to how much space will be available. Um, for within each given given major. Um, so excuse me, March 17th is our deadline. And with all that being said, as you can see, painting is unfortunately crossed out because we do know at this point that our painting department simply does not have enough space available for transfers. Um, but we do have other majors that are new this year, art and computation and sound, and those majors are accepting transfers for fall 2026 entry. I also want to point out that again, you're applying to one particular major, but if once you arrive at RISD and you're in your first semester in your fall and sophomore year, you are able to take on a secondary major if you'd like, and that just involves you proposing with your current department head and the department head of the major you're interested in to take on that secondary major. All right. I also encourage you to choose, really look into our departments. The departments, when they look at these transfer applications, they're looking, of course, to learn as much about you as they can, and they're also looking for applicants who really, um, they're looking for applicants who are very genuinely interested in their department. So definitely do your research, learn about each major. You can visit risd.edu. You can go to the academic section, the menus at the top, and then select undergraduate study, and you can find all of our different undergraduate departments. You can see curriculum breakdown, course descriptions. You can see some student work, learn about faculty and the department's workspaces and tools. All right, so generally when we're reviewing your portfolio, again, what we're looking for is creativity and personality. We want to see experimentation and outside the box thinking. As I said, risk taking, your ideas. So when I say we want to get to know you, we really want to get to know you in your portfolio, and we hope to learn in your application as a whole, but we really hope to learn the most about you in your portfolio. And again, I'm just basically going to be a broken record here. We really want to keep your major in mind when you're putting your portfolio together. So really make it evident that that is the department that you're interested in. So I'm going to show you some examples of RISD student and alumni work from our majors, not including art and computation and sound because they're still so new. Keep in mind, again, this is work not from, any transfer applicant portfolio, but of current students who have been at RISD for some time or alumni, again, who went through the program. So just keep that in mind, but just to kind of give you some examples. Here's Apparel design. As you can see, students have experimented with materials here, really stepping outside the box and using Barbie doll heads as this for this garment. You can experiment with colors and textures. Got architecture. Now, architecture is our only undergraduate program where you would spend a full 4 years in the major as a transfer. So, um, most majors, you're in that department for 3 years before you graduate. But because you're graduating with the Bachelor of Architecture, when you come to RISD, if you're starting as a sophomore, you'll be in that major for 4 full years. Now, rather than showing your architectural work in the form of blueprints or floor plans, get creative with your architectural drawings and sculptural models. You have ceramics, film animation video. You know, if you're interested in FAV, maybe spend time on your lighting. Think about the mood and the atmosphere that you can create. And you can also do that even if the you don't have film or animation experience quite yet, you can still make work that is adjacent to that. So I believe these are film stills, but like you can also have, cinematic photography work as well. That would be great to showcase your interest in FAV. You can experiment with light and projection. In film animation videos, students, learn live action, they learn animation, and they choose one of the two to focus on, or they go into open media, which is an experimental combination of the two. Furniture design, glass, graphic design, illustration, industrial design, interior architecture, jewelry and metalsmithing, painting. And as you can see that little note at the bottom, again, we are unfortunately not accepting applications for painting, but I still want to just show you some work in this major. Photography, printmaking, sculpture, textiles. Right. So again, that was examples of student or alumni work from all of our majors, aside from the two new majors, art and computation and sound. But you can still learn a lot about all of our departments, as I said, on our website, including art and computation and sound. Um, but one question we get all the time in admissions is which is more important, technical skill or creativity, concept. So, let's speak first about technical skill. When we say technical skill, we're referring to how you purposefully use your materials to achieve a finished piece or endeavor. And here are some key terms to consider when you think about technical skill. So not computation, my apologies, composition, mark making, texture, movement, color, space, point of view, and light. So for composition, how you arrange the different elements within a piece, how you purposefully use every part of the surface of the piece. Mark making, again, how can you create texture? How can you experiment with the way that you're working with your tools, whether it be pen, pencil, paint? Thinking about texture, is the literal feel of a tactile surface or material, or the appearance of the tactile surface or material. So, you you want to consider texture when making architectural drawings, for example, as well. And in the painting on the left, Mark Bradford's paintings, texture drives his process. He starts by covering his canvas with at least 10 layers of paper, as well as embedding linear elements like string, and then he kind of attacks it with power sanders and other tools to expose earlier layers. So kind of like sculpting this 2D piece. You can also think about texture in your digital pieces. Point of view, how you compose your piece in relation to the viewer. In other words, is the viewer looking at the subject from below, from behind, from 1 mile away? So we want to see point of view in terms, compositionally, as well as your unique ideas, your point of view. Space, in two-dimensional work, how you create the illusion of dimension, or purposeful, point to the flatness of a surface, how you create or not create the sense of foreground, middle ground, and background. It is something that hopefully you're intentionally thinking about. Light, how you use areas of light and dark to create an illusion of space, a sense of mood, add emphasis to your piece. And you can also consider the color and temperature of the lighting. Here it's kind of a cold early morning light, and it makes this piece feel empty. I mean, there's no one in here, but there is an emptiness about that feeling. Whereas this light is warm, late afternoon. It just feels cozy and inviting. Think about color, how you use the hue through materials and surface. And again, that can be in 2D work, 3D work. So basically, we challenge you to use your technical skills to go further than just an exercise about technique. So, your technical skills and your concepts should be influencing each other, or your conceptual ideas and your technical skills should be working together in each piece. So, think about these key terms. We have mood, idea or concept, narrative, goal. So when it comes to idea or concept, what do you want the viewer to start thinking about when they look at or interact with your work? And this can be a particular point of view or set of values, and it can be a larger, small scale ideas. Of course, art is, up for interpretation, but um, you're also communicating, your ideas and your point of view in the work that you're making. Mood, the feeling or impression that a piece leaves on the viewer. So I feel like both of these have a very different mood or tone. Um, the what no, on the left has more of a somber and sad feel, whereas the one on the right is there's just this joy and happiness to this work. Can also depict mood in a 3D piece like this. So These Spoons by Joy Liu incorporates the warmth of a mother spoon and a baby spoon nestled within, while also creating functional, safe, saving space. Space savings. Yep, that's what I meant. Space saving design. Then narrative. So again, there's so many different ways to tell this, story arc. So it could be like in the piece on the left, it could be all the entire story of Little Riding Hood in this one image, or in this film. Like I love this image here because I have so many questions. Like what just happened? What is about to happen? I'm intrigued. I want to know more. And, think about the goal. Especially with design-based work, your proposal, your piece, you're thinking about function. So what is a piece that you're trying to solve? Or like what's a problem you're trying to solve, and does your design do that? So this is a gardening tool for patients with arthritis, for example. And also maybe your goal of your work is also just to kind of experiment with materials and see what happens, see what it reveals. Now, keep in mind that this does not mean that your concepts have to be huge or lofty. They can certainly be more lighthearted and personal. And again, like I said, you can experiment with materials and kind of find the meaning or the concepts within that experimentation. I do encourage you to vary your process, avoid making every piece the same way. Look at your work all together, identify the most common elements in your portfolio, maybe in terms of color palette, composition, materials, and subject matter. Once you have identified those elements, try to expand beyond that. So, when we say vary your process, again, this doesn't mean you have to bounce around to every material and try every discipline in the world by any means. But step outside your comfort zone, try new things. It could lead to something really cool. It could surprise you and be really cool. And even if those experiments don't end up in your portfolio, it's still worthwhile. And you can really step outside of the box and even in terms of what a drawing can look like. So these are just three different examples of what making a drawing could be. So the piece on the right, these students have made a drawing machine and they duct tape four paintbrushes to this dolly, and they've attached strings. And as you can see, they're working together to fling this drawing tool around and create this painting on this piece of paper on the ground. And then the piece in the middle, the artist is writing characters on ice cubes and letting that melt into her paper. Um, it's another very process-driven drawing. And then on the left, this is just this more traditional drawing technique, but it's a great photo because, the student is looking at what they're observing. They're not, focused heavily on their piece of paper. They are clearly drawing from direct observation and pulling from life. Again, don't make every piece the same. Avoid formulas. So maybe use thread and embroidery as a drawing. You can have a drawing be three-dimensional as well, like with this insect sculpture. Maybe turn your character design into a wearable costume. And mark making is not restricted to drawing. Think about this with every discipline and material that you use. And maybe you really like drawing people or painting people, try doing it with fabric. I love how the piece on the right isn't trying to disguise that the beige background is made with socks. Let your materials show through. And even, if you like working in one discipline, it's still wise to vary your process. So, for example, if you consider yourself a photographer, and you really only want to, if you're applying to photography, maybe consider, how to vary what you photograph, how you can edit and manipulate your photographs. So yeah, this piece by Marilyn McMaster. She's a Canadian artist from the Plains Cree tribe, and she often incorporates sculpture and performance into her photography. So here that, I love her use of wire and how it acts as like a three-dimensional drawing that adds these layers and makes for a really interesting sense of space. You can consider lighting if you're interested in portraiture. Consider the background. Have fun with setting up different textures and patterns. It doesn't have to be expensive photo paper. Dennis here uses like turf and orange plastic fencing and aluminum foil and blinds. So really get creative and resourceful. Have fun with it. You can play with shadows, layering in a really interesting way. You can play with collage, but really, step outside the norm in terms of collage. You can incorporate, mixed media within your photographs or on top of your photographs. So there's, on the left, it's on top of a photo of a bird's nest that we've got pebbles, and on the right, it's like push pins on top of a portrait. You can play with digital manipulation. And again, as I mentioned earlier about working from observation, it's not required in the portfolio by any means, but it's certainly going to make your work stronger. It's definitely a great idea as much as you can to work directly from observation. So, when you work from a 3D resource, your depiction will have more life and volume to it. And of course, your depiction of whatever it is that you're observing does not need to be photorealistic by any means. Um, you can it could be experimental within mark making. It could be abstract, but don't just use a photo reference or a video reference alone. That way you don't have the added challenge of trying to make it so that your depiction doesn't look flat, which tends to happen if you're working only from a flat resource. So, for example, you can make your own still life. So the image on the right is what the still life looked like. Now, this is just to show for this presentation here. In your portfolio, you don't need to include the image of the still life that you used. But as you can see, this artist created a still life that's very unique to them, um, and worked from that. So the work from the still life is on the left. And again, already it has so much personality to it. It's so unique. Draw what's around. So this artist, Hera, describes my mother's house is a messy house. The piles of random clutter found in almost every room are a manifestation and a metaphor for the strained, complicated relationships and emotional intensities of the house. We're cluttered, frustrated, loving folk, my mother and I. It's complicated, but it's our house. So, this still life of cluttered objects has so much more meaning. Behind it. So again, you can find inspiration for anywhere. You can just mundane objects in your house as well. Maybe a relative or friend who's sitting and reading or watching TV. They can be your subject. You can draw buildings, different times of the day or night, and of course, draw them, paint them, um, incorporate mixed media. Nature, of course, is never-ending source of inspiration. So again, we really hope to learn about you and your portfolio. And no matter what major you're applying to, again, the portfolio, we hope to learn about you all throughout your application, but the portfolio is the part where we hope to learn about you the most. So definitely things to keep in mind that we don't recommend including. Fan art, for example, even if it's a really well done depiction of a work that already, that of characters that already exist, that doesn't tell us anything about you, really. If you want to include um, characters, we want to see your own. Master copies are really great in terms of exercise. So they're great to learn technique. However, including a master copy in your portfolio, once again, does not help us learn much about you. If you're going to work from a master copy, if you're going to make a work that's in response to a master copy, that's one thing. But just including um, a remake of an existing artwork doesn't tell us anything about you. I also, I would discourage you from only including digital work, though of course digital work is absolutely welcome. But it's also helpful for us to see, work that you're doing with hands-on medium as well. Most of the work you include should be finished and fully realized. So you are welcome to include as many as you'd like within the range of 12 to 20 examples of work, but make sure that they feel finished and thought out. Only a few examples of process work is a good idea. I would say up to 3 examples. We don't need to see process for every finished piece you include. So keep that in mind as well. So again, just experiment with your approaches. So again, as I mentioned earlier, an architectural drawing, this is a really interesting way to approach it. It's not as interesting to show a floor plan or blueprints or anything, but show a creative way um, to to draw this architectural structure that you're wanting to include in your portfolio. You can also get creative and really humorous and interesting with portraits, and self-portraits are great because not required by any means, but like the subject matter, the muse are always there. So you can get really fun and playful with it. You can get experimental with the way that you're using the tools. As I said, if you're including character designs in your portfolio, we want to see your original designs, your ideas, your characters. Experiment with their gesture, their moves, their like how they're moving in a space, but also maybe put them in an environment, and the environment where they belong, and in an environment where they don't belong. Create some interesting conflict. But show us your original work rather than showcasing, a very well done like fan art. You can combine 2D physical media by and you can combine digital work. You can play around with digital collage and kind of embrace it as a sketchbook page. And basically have fun with it. So with all of the stuff that I'm talking about, take it in as suggestions, as ideas. Um, just have fun with it and allow yourself to experiment. And then when it gets closer to the March 17th deadline, give yourself a couple weeks beforehand. Definitely want to, give yourself some cushion time. But when it comes time to start putting together your portfolio, look at what you've made, look at what you've done most recently that speaks to the best that the work you're most excited about and the work that really showcases your interest in the major that you are applying to. And then include those pieces in your portfolio. And I'm going to open back up for questions. And of course, let us know in admissions, as you can see here, any questions you may have along the way. But of course, I will stop sharing my screen so I can answer some questions for you now.
Well, thank you, Marion. Thank you, thank you. Cool. So we have a few questions in chat. I'll start with the first one. Alongside the experimental pieces, would you recommend for illustration applicants to submit some pieces to prove their foundational skills, such as figure drawings?
Yeah, I would say again, not required by any means, but you do a lot of figure drawing and illustration for sure. So if you have strong figurative work, definitely include it. Doesn't mean that you have to though, I'd say. Yeah.
Cool. So I see the next question. Actually, we have a couple questions in one submission. So
Awesome.
I'll start with the first one. Which are the STEM majors at RISD for undergrad? Arna, are you asking about STEM eligible majors for visas? Because I'm happy to share a list of those in the chat if you would like. But I guess. Yeah, I'll go on to the next
Yeah.
question for now until I
Yeah.
hear back because I can't think of what else that question might be in reference to. Um, if we show photos from our process in our portfolio, how do we display that?
That's a great question. Um, there's a few different ways you can do that. I mean, the way that in terms of how you arrange your slides, you can put more than one image on a slide. Definitely, though, don't overclutter it. So you can do it in a number of different ways. If you wanted to, you could have one slide that is dedicated to the final piece, and then another slide that is shows. We recommend up to 3 images, no more than that, because then it gets really difficult to see the hard work that you've put in. But up to 3 images of some process, um, you know, or maybe there's I would say like if your process is very much like back to that image I showed of the two students working with that drawing tool that they created and a lot of movement is involved, maybe you want to take a video. With that being said, I wouldn't recommend including like a time-lapse video of you, painting a still life as an example. But if it's very process driven and a video would better just, showcase that by all means. Um But yeah, I would just be mindful though when it comes to showing process work, be just as discerning with that as you are with all the work that you're including. Include if you wanted to include pages from your sketchbook too, that's a good idea as well. You can do that by showing an actual image of a couple of pages from your sketchbook on one slide, or you can have a short video of you flipping through your sketchbook. Any videos include, we ask that they're not more than 3 minutes so that there's a better chance of the reviewer having time to see it in full. But yeah, that's another way you can show process.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. If I design a building and draw it as a piece for my portfolio, would making a 3D model of it separately count as another portfolio piece?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great idea too. I'm often advise, students who work with three-dimensional work predominantly, like maybe try putting a dramatic light on that 3D work you're doing and to create a drawing or painting. So to answer your question, yes, that would be considered two pieces, I would say.
Another question is how can I show the use of different materials in an architecture portfolio, or I guess any major specific portfolio?
That's a really good question. Do you
I
mean
could
like,
take it if you'd like. Oh, sorry.
oh, no, please go ahead, actually. You were about to say, oh,
Yeah, it's so architecture is a very broad discipline. It's not material specific. Keep in mind the RISD architecture department is very much architecture in the context of an art and design school. When I've walked down to their shows, I know that traditionally architecture at a tech school is taught to use very specific materials. Use this kind of paper, this kind of wood, this kind of glue. But at RISD, I've seen melted wax in architectural models. I've seen glass and sculpture incorporated. So just really feel free to think outside of the box. Things can still be conceptually related to architecture, but then still show us a wide array of material usage and experimentation. It's less about having a lot of variety of materials and more about us seeing experimentation and that you're thinking and working outside of your comfort zone.
that was great. That
Cool.
was excellent.
Thank you. Next question is what kind of still life pieces could I make for architecture?
I mean, again, as you asked about a three-dimensional work, I mean, when it comes to architecture, I feel like the most interesting pieces are your architectural models, and your creative architectural drawings. And again, still life is these are just examples of how you can showcase you can work with direct observation. So you don't necessarily have to have a still life in an architecture portfolio, but really, I would say, um, I don't know, you can, really, you can just, whatever it is that you want to bring together, to use to draw from life. But whatever, honestly, I would say, I think I really love the idea of like doing drawings of the 3D models or the sculptures that you've made. I think that's a really, really cool idea. But again, you don't specifically have to have a still life in your portfolio. Um, yeah, yeah,
And it's okay if you have something that's not related to architecture. It's
yeah,
just a still life of something else, definitely.
exactly. Yeah.
Let me see. Sorry, I forgot where I left off. Can you use work that we take inspiration from or something that influenced our work for our architecture? Um,
That
I
we
guess
take
they're
in.
asking if they can include reference images or inspiration images.
Oh, okay, great. That's a great question. And that I would say I would not advise including reference images or um, like inspiration photos. We get those a lot in some portfolios, for example, like directed towards apparel design and other majors too, but there's oftentimes like mood boards as an example. And it kind of overclutters the slide. It's confusing, I think, too much on one slide. Also, we really just want to see your work. So if you're wanting to talk, again, showcase your critical thinking and development process and how you came up with that idea, that's one thing. But including like images of structures that have inspired you to pursue architecture, I would not advise that because it just overclutters things and we really want to see your work.
Great.
Um,
Next question. Should we include descriptions with each portfolio piece? And if so, how long should they be?
You are welcome to include a description, absolutely. I recommend keeping it brief. It's not required to have a description, although if you do include work that really, if you're working collaboratively with other people, other artists, it is important to make sure to speak to that, to cite the other artists, speak to your specific contribution. If maybe, as I mentioned in the presentation, like we don't want to see master copies, but if you're making your own original work that's in like response to to a master work, it's good to speak to that in your description. But overall, I recommend keeping it brief. Just you want to let the work speak for itself.
Definitely. On a similar note, is text allowed on the slides itself, on the images, or is there a limit? I know some schools don't allow text on slides and have a caption section per slide on slide room.
Great question. And we please, yes, please do not put text on the slide itself. Of course, unless the text is part of the work you're making. So if you're interested in graphic design, you have graphic design work, that's one thing. I will say there is a spot for you to put like a window for you to put your let me see if I can actually pull it up as I say it. There's a spot for you to put your description, your title, your medium size, everything like that. Um, and I want to pull this up because we for transfers, you're not using slide room, you're actually using the portfolio. You're submitting your portfolio through the portal. So it looks a little bit differently, and we do go through it in the application prep 2. There's a recording of on the YouTube channel. Um, we also have an application prep I want to say 7, final the checklist. But just to show you, let me share my screen again. Forgive me. Mm-mm. Okay, so kind of just to show you real quick. So again, you're not using slide room, but similarly, this is just showing you that you have to how to edit and whatnot. Let me go through here. But yeah, basically you can preview what it would look like. Um, And actually, let me go back. I'm so sorry. So as you can see in this window just shows you like how to edit if you upload it in the incorrect orientation. But as you can see in this window, you have the title, the year, the size, the medium, which is also, I think, helpful, and especially if you can't, you're using unconventional materials and you definitely want to showcase that there. And then the description box, as you can see there. So similar to Slide Room in that it's a separate box. Um, and then let's see. Uh, oh, back. That was that's incorrect there. But yeah, so basically it won't, if you put it in on the slide itself, then it just competes with the actual artwork. So don't do that. But definitely but unless it's the text is a part of the artwork that you're sharing.
Thank you, thank you. We have a clarification on an earlier question, the one about inspiration, and
Mhm.
the question asker asks, I meant, could we use other pieces that already exist as an inspiration for our work? I was typing away answers, so I forget if your answer addressed this already or not.
No worries at all. I'm actually wondering, I was like, inspire like
I
I
suppose they're asking if like you could use pre-existing artwork, design work,
yeah.
architectural work as inspiration for your own work.
Oh, got it. I mean, okay, thank you. Yes. Yes. And so similarly about like rather than instead of using like including a master copy, which we don't recommend and really doesn't help us to learn more about you. Um, yes, you can make work that's like in response to or, takes, you can take a pre-existing work and adding to it. Let's see if I can find a visual of what I mean there. I'll return to that. Did you want, let's see if I can, let's see if I can multitask. Um, but, but basically, yeah, you can of course be inspired by work that's already exists and is out there. But let me try to see an example. Um, I don't know. I still don't know if I'm answering the question specifically, but let's see. I'll see if I can find a good visual for that. I would just say to I would just say as long as you are ta making it your own and it's your original ideas in response to something that maybe has inspired you. That's, that's okay. Okay, let's see. Um, could I use
Another
Oh,
clarification.
here we go.
Could
Okay.
could I use techniques from other existing works for my piece?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
for
Easy.
sure.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did you still want to show the example or should
If I
I?
find it, I will. Yeah, I will. But let's see if but we
I
can,
can answer the next question for you
oh,
if
go
you
for
want
it.
while you
Thank
look for
you.
it.
Perfect.
So next question, how many process works, idea, development, sketch do you recommend for illustration applicants to submit? I'll say first, this isn't a major specific thing. But what I'm about to say applies for every major. But when it comes to process work, there's no strict ratio. As long as you have 12 well-developed finished pieces in the portfolio, then you can really submit as much process as you want. I tend to find that students just submit too much process, so I would maybe only recommend 2 to 3 at most. Again, it's not a requirement. You don't have to submit process if you don't want to. But I recommend submitting process that gives us more insight into your work and development as an artist or designer. For example, some students will include sketchbook images, and some students tend to be less precious about their sketchbook than they are their finished work. So oftentimes their sketchbook is a little bit looser, rougher, faster. It gives us a different aspects of understanding to your practice than we would see from just the finished work. So that's a great opportunity to show process or sketchbook work. However, if, say, for illustration, if you executed an oil painting, and the process for that was the same composition, but first executed as a charcoal drawing. And there was little difference between the two other than medium. Then I maybe won't submit the process because that's a process that's very linear. We can figure it out just from seeing the finished painting or piece in any case. But yeah, if it's a unique process, if it gives us more uh, it gives us better idea of your practice as a whole, shows us different size and aspects to it, then yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Maybe 2 to 3 is a good balance of process pieces if you choose to include them. But again, as long as you have 12 well-developed finished pieces, it doesn't really matter. We just want to see that at least most of the work is well developed and finished.
Excellent. I'm still
Cool.
searching for this picture that I wanted that I was like, I felt like maybe it demonstrated what I was trying to say, and I'm
Yeah,
having trouble
I
finding
can
it.
answer another question too.
Please.
So we're up to date on questions, but I'll go back to one I answered in the chat for everyone too, because I assume this is one that other people might have questions about. Can you apply as a junior? You cannot. So the vast majority of our transfer applicants will enter the RISD program in their sophomore year. So we do recommend anticipating that and kind of being aware that that is the likely scenario for most of our transfer applicants. It is possible to be considered for advanced standing later on, but that is essentially up to your department head once you enroll in RISD, so it's not guaranteed. But yeah, I'll
I will
include
say
some.
about
Yeah.
that, sorry, Zach. So you're absolutely right in that most students come in as sophomores. It's possible if you have closer to 60 credits to be admitted as a junior, but as Zach said, and you're absolutely correct, it is not, it's not nearly as common. Most transfers come in as sophomores. And then, as you said, yeah, once you get here, you can say, can I be considered for advanced standing? And your department head will look at, your classes from your other school, your portfolio again, and they might move you forward so you can skip some foundational classes for that major. But it is, yeah, most students come in as fall semester sophomores. Um,
Cool.
I saw another question. Does RISD have internships that we can take part in during the school year? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Um, we have a RISD Careers Center, which is great, and they're really incredible. They have so many different resources, and also within the department, there's often a staff or faculty member who is like the point person to help you, is like the internship coordinator and helps you connect with those opportunities for sure. Um, I also then I got. I'm still trying to look for this page.
Still look for that
I'm
slide.
still looking for this slide, and I guarantee you I'm gonna find it the second we log off, but I won't be stressed. But I'm like, oh, where is this slide? Anyway, we still have a few more. Oh, here we go.
I can take this one while you're looking too, because it's an international question. I'm the international regional rep for the international students here. Always happy to answer your international questions. But the question is, does RISD offer scholarships for international applicants? The answer is yes, but unfortunately, they're very limited right now. You do have to submit the RISD institutional financial aid form to be considered for financial aid as an international student. For US citizens, you have to submit both that form and the FAFSA form. But for international students, you just submit the RISD institutional financial aid form. To give you an idea of what they look like and how limited, unfortunately, they are, we give out about 10 international scholarships each year, and each scholarship is for about 10,000 US dollars per, I forget if it's semester or year. My apologies. I believe it's per year. But I know it does increase at the same rate that tuition increases too. So it'll increase along with tuition throughout the all 4 years. But yeah, I know 10,000 US dollars isn't a lot in the grand scheme of RISD's full tuition. I can still make a huge difference, you know. 10,000 US dollars is still 10,000 US dollars, so I always recommend applying for it. But I recommend going, if you look up, and I can send a link to this in the chat later, but if you look up RISD SFS or RISD Student Financial Services, they have a lot of links and resources for international students on their websites. You can see links to outside resources, what other kinds of scholarships can you apply for as an international student that you can then bring back to cover parts of the cost of tuition for RISD. There's a lot of really great resources for that on the RISD Student Financial Services website. Then another international question. Can international students get a social security number to apply for jobs on campus or other jobs? Yes, but you cannot apply for jobs outside of campus. So international students can, as part of the F1 visa that most of our international students will be on, you can only work on campus at RISD. Unfortunately, with an F1 visa, the student visa, you won't be able to work at other positions, firms while you're a student. There is the OPT and CPT where you can intern at other places in the US or work in the US after you graduate for a certain period of time. But while you're a student, it's primarily on campus student employment.
Guess what? I found it.
Yay. Go
Oh
ahead and share
my
your screen. I'll put
gosh.
links to those.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach, so
Of
much. That was
course, yeah.
very helpful. Okay, so let me just share what I was trying to look for. I mean, this is an example. Oh, hold on. This is an example of what I was trying to maybe talk about in terms of like, and rather than including a master copy, which of course there's the work by Monet on the left, and then Mickalene Thomas, rather than, including a master copy where it's just like you're doing a direct uh, recreation by with paint and everything, you can still be inspired by an existing work and make it your own. So she uses photography there, and then she goes even further. Let me see here. Whoops. No, there we go. So like to even absolutely referencing a masterwork and an existing work, but then taking your own spin on it. So thank you for your patience with that. That's what I was really wanting to try to articulate, and also thank you for clarifying your question as well. But and excellent. All right.
Cool. Well, that's it for questions. I already sent
Awesome.
in a last call for questions in the chat, so I think we're up to date. If we want to start wrapping things up, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Zach. Um, so thank you all again so much. I definitely check out upcoming um, info sessions. We have portfolio tips, curating and presenting your portfolio. Um, that speaks to first year, but also transfers. Well, we also have in February a transfer application checklist. And check out our recording of application prep 2 for transfers. But also please let us know if you have any questions. And thank you all for being here. And Zach, thank you so much for your support.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye all.
Bye.